The snow fell thickly over Hawthorne Manor, cloaking the 1930s English countryside in ghostly silence. Inside, the Christmas Eve gathering hummed with forced cheer, until a scream shattered the revelry. Sir Reginald Hawthorne, the manor's imperious master, lay dead in his locked study, a glass of mulled wine spilled across his desk. No weapon, no intruder, only a faint, bitter scent lingering in the air. Hercule Poirot, a guest stranded by the storm, adjusted his impeccable mustache. "Mon Dieu," he murmured, "a puzzle most diabolical. Who among the glittering guests held the key to this chilling Christmas mystery?" Chapter 1. The Locked Study. The snow fell in relentless sheets over Hawthorne Manor, transforming the rolling English countryside into a spectral wasteland. It was Christmas Eve, 1933, and the manor's ivy-clad walls stood resolute against the howling storm. Inside, the grand hall glowed with the warmth of a roaring fire, its flames casting long shadows across the polished oak floors. The air was thick with the scent of pine from a towering Christmas tree, adorned with glass baubles that glinted like wary eyes. Guests in evening attire sipped mulled wine, their laughter strained as if the storm outside whispered of secrets none dared voice. Hercule Poirot, the diminutive Belgian detective with a mustache as impeccable as his reputation, stood near the hearth, observing the room with his sharp, bird-like eyes. He had accepted Sir Reginald Hawthorne's invitation out of courtesy, expecting a quiet holiday. Fate, it seemed, had other plans. At precisely 10 o'clock, a scream tore through the festive hum. It came from the study, a heavy oak door at the far end of the hall. The guests froze, glasses clinking as they were set down. Lady Eleanor Hawthorne, regal in her emerald gown, was the first to move, her face ashen. "Reginald!" she cried, rushing toward the door. Poirot followed, his polished shoes clicking on the floor, his mind already cataloguing the scene. The door was locked, the key still in Sir Reginald's possession inside. Victor Grange, the burly business partner, shouldered the door open with a crack of splintering wood. The study was a tableau of tragedy. Sir Reginald Hawthorne, a man of 60 with a stern jaw and iron-gray hair, lay slumped over his mahogany desk. His eyes stared blankly, his fingers curled around a fountain pen as if he had been writing his final thought. A glass of mulled wine had spilled, staining papers with a dark crimson tide. The room was oppressively warm, a fire crackling in the grate, yet a faint bitter scent lingered, an odor Poirot recognized with a chill. Cyanide. The windows were latched, the snow outside undisturbed. The door, until moments ago, had been locked from within. "Mon Dieu," Poirot murmured, adjusting his tie. A puzzle most diabolical. Lady Eleanor sank into a chair, her sobs muffled by a silk handkerchief. "He was fine at dinner," she whispered, laughing, toasting the season. Dr. Malcolm Brent, the family physician, knelt beside the body, his hands steady but his brow furrowed. "Heart failure, perhaps," he suggested, though his voice lacked conviction. Poirot's gaze flicked to the doctor's trembling fingers, then to the spilled wine. "Non, monsieur," Poirot said softly. "The heart, it does not leave such a scent." He leaned closer, noting the faint froth at Reginald's lips, the rigidity of his limbs. Cyanide, swift and merciless, but how administered? The glass held no obvious residue, and no vial or container lay nearby. The other guests crowded the doorway. Clara Hawthorne, Reginald's niece, clutched her shawl, her youthful face pale but defiant. "Who could do this?" she demanded, her voice sharp. Victor Grange, his ruddy cheeks flushed from wine or guilt, muttered, "Damned if I know." Mrs. Agnes Poole, the housekeeper, stood apart, her gray hair pinned tightly, her eyes unreadable. Poirot noted their positions, their expressions, the way each avoided his scrutiny. "Mes amis," he said, raising a hand. "We must not disturb the scene. The truth, it is here, waiting for the little gray cells to uncover it." Poirot began his examination, moving with the precision of a watchmaker. The desk held a ledger open to a page of figures. Debts, perhaps. A scrap of paper bore a single word in Reginald's hand. Trust. Significant or trivial? Poirot tucked it into his pocket. The wine glass, half empty, sat beside a decanter, its crystal gleaming under the lamplight. He sniffed it cautiously. No almond-like odor, yet the scent clung to Reginald's breath. A paradox. The fire burned low, but a faint draft stirred the curtains. Poirot tested the windows, latched, sealed by years of paint. The lock on the door, when inspected, showed no signs of tampering. A locked room, a dead man, and 5 souls with secrets. He turned to the guests, his voice calm but commanding. "Tell me, who last saw Sir Reginald alive?" Lady Eleanor spoke first, her voice trembling. "We dined at 7. He was jovial, speaking of his plans for the new year. He retired to his study at 9, saying he had letters to write." Clara nodded. "I saw him go in. He locked the door. I heard the bolt." Victor grunted. "I was in the billiard room losing to Brent." Dr. Brent adjusted his glasses. "I checked on Reginald at 9:30. He was alive, working." Mrs. Poole, silent until now, added, "I brought him wine at 8. He was alone." Poirot's eyes narrowed. 5 alibis, each plausible, yet one must be false. He questioned further, probing motives. Lady Eleanor admitted Reginald's recent will change, favoring a charity over family. A sore point. "He said it was for the greater good," she whispered. Clara's eyes flashed. "He called me reckless, unfit for his fortune." Victor confessed a business feud. Reginald's decisions had cost him dearly. "Nearly bankrupt," he growled. Dr. Brent fidgeted, evading questions about his closeness to the family. Mrs. Poole's curt replies hinted at a long-buried grudge, though she offered no details. The room grew colder as the storm raged outside. Poirot paced, his mind weaving threads. The poison suggested intent, but the locked room baffled. Had someone slipped cyanide into the wine? If so, how? When all dined together. The decanter served at dinner had been handled by Mrs. Poole, yet all glasses were poured from it. A capsule, perhaps, dissolving slowly. Poirot's gaze fell on a silver tray near the desk, holding a single sugar cube untouched. Curious. Reginald was not known to take sugar. As midnight approached, the grandfather clock in the hall chimed, its notes heavy in the silence. Poirot straightened, his mustache twitching. "We shall reconvene tomorrow," he declared. "The storm traps us, but it traps the killer too." The guests dispersed, their footsteps echoing. Poirot lingered, his eyes on the study's shadows. Then a sound, a faint creak from the darkened corridor beyond the door. Not the wind, not the house settling. A footstep, deliberate and soft. Chapter 2. Shadows of Motive. The storm battered Hawthorne Manor, its icy fingers rattling the windows as if demanding entry. Inside the drawing room was a cocoon of firelight and suspicion, the air heavy with the aftershock of Sir Reginald Hawthorne's death. Hercule Poirot stood before the hearth, his small frame casting a long shadow across the Persian rug. His eyes, sharp as a hawk's, scanned the assembled guests. Lady Eleanor Hawthorne, her emerald gown now creased, clutching a handkerchief. Dr. Malcolm Brent, his spectacles fogging slightly as he avoided Poirot's gaze. Clara Hawthorne, her youthful defiance tempered by unease. Victor Grange, his broad shoulders hunched, nursing a tumbler of brandy. And Mrs. Agnes Poole, the housekeeper, her face a mask of stoic reserve. The grandfather clock ticked toward 1 in the morning, each second a reminder of the killer trapped among them by the snow. "Monsieur et Madame," Poirot began, his Belgian accent precise, A crime has been committed, and the truth it hides in the shadows of your words. Let us bring it to the light." He clasped his hands behind his back, pacing slowly. "Sir Reginald was poisoned. Cyanide, I suspect, though the method remains elusive. The study was locked, the windows sealed, the snow undisturbed. Yet someone delivered death. Tell me, what do you know of Sir Reginald's final hours?" Lady Eleanor spoke first, her voice brittle as frost. "He was in high spirits at dinner, toasting to family and future. We spoke of his charity plans, his will." Her eyes darted to Clara, who stiffened. Poirot noted the tension. "The will," he said. "I understand Sir Reginald intended to alter it, no?" Eleanor nodded, her fingers twisting the handkerchief. "He wished to leave most of his fortune to a children's hospital. He believed it would secure his legacy." Clara's laugh was sharp, cutting through the room. "Legacy? He called me a spendthrift, unfit to inherit, said I'd squander it on frivolities." Her dark eyes blazed, but Poirot caught a tremor in her hands. "And you, Mademoiselle Clara, where were you when he retired to his study?" he asked. Clara hesitated. "In the library, reading. I heard the scream later." Poirot's mustache twitched. A solitary alibi easily fabricated. Victor Grange drained his brandy, his ruddy face flushed. "Don't look at me, Poirot. I was in the billiard room, losing to Brent." He gestured to the doctor, who nodded too quickly. "Indeed," Brent said, adjusting his glasses. "We played until the scream. Reginald was alive when I checked on him at 9:30. Poirot's gaze lingered on Brent's nervous tick, a slight twitch of the jaw. "And you, Madame Poole?" he asked, turning to the housekeeper. Her gray eyes met his, unyielding. "I served the wine at dinner and brought a glass to his study at 8. He was alone, working." Her voice was flat, but Poirot sensed a current beneath it. He shifted focus to the clues. "The wine glass in the study, it interests me. The decanter from dinner, where is it now?" Mrs. Poole frowned. "In the pantry, I presume. I cleared it after dinner." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "We shall see." He led the group to the pantry, a narrow room off the kitchen where shelves gleamed with crystal and silver. The decanter was missing. Mrs. Poole's composure faltered. "It was here," she insisted. Poirot's mind whirred. A missing decanter suggested tampering, or a deliberate red herring. Returning to the drawing room, Poirot produced the scrap of paper from Reginald's pocket, the word "trust" scrawled in his hand. "What does this mean to you?" he asked. Lady Eleanor paled. "He often spoke of trust, how it was broken in business and family." Victor snorted. "Reginald trusted no one. His deals ruined me, debts piling up because of his schemes." Poirot noted Victor's clenched fists, the veins pulsing in his neck. A man on the edge. Dr. Brent shifted uncomfortably. "Reginald was under strain. I prescribed him sedatives for sleeplessness." Poirot tilted his head. "And did you administer anything else, doctor?" Brent flushed. "Of course not," Clara interjected. "He was healthy, wasn't he? Why sedatives?" Brent stammered. "Just precaution." Poirot filed away the inconsistency. Mrs. Poole remained silent, but Poirot recalled her curt demeanor. "Madame, you served Sir Reginald for years. Was there discord?" Her lips tightened. "He was a demanding master, fair but hard." A pause then. "His decisions hurt many." Poirot sensed a deeper wound, perhaps personal. The fire crackled, casting flickering shadows that seemed to dance with secrets. Poirot reconstructed the evening. Dinner at 7, wine served from the decanter, Reginald retiring to his study at 9, Brent's visit at 9:30, the scream at 10. The cyanide's swift action meant it was administered close to death. But how? The glass, The sugar cube, the missing decanter, all pieces of a puzzle. Poirot's little gray cells hummed, weaving possibilities. A capsule, perhaps dissolving in the wine, or something more ingenious. He questioned the suspects further, probing for cracks. Lady Eleanor admitted Reginald's will change had sparked arguments. "He thought I spent too freely," she said, her voice low. Clara revealed a letter from Reginald, praising her spirit but warning of disinheritance. "He sent it last week," she said, producing it. Poirot scanned the elegant script, genuine, but oddly timed. A distraction? Victor confessed his financial ruin stemmed from Reginald's refusal to invest in a joint venture. "He betrayed me," Victor growled. Brent's alibi held, but his nervous glances at Eleanor suggested a hidden connection. Mrs. Poole's silence grew heavier, her eyes avoiding the group. As the clock struck 2, Poirot noticed a detail. A single glove, black leather, lying near the study door. It was not there earlier. "Whose is this?" he asked, holding it aloft. The guests exchanged glances, none claiming it. Clara's eyes widened briefly, then narrowed. Victor's hand went to his pocket, then stopped. Poirot smiled thinly. "The glove, it speaks, no? It tells us someone was careless." He tucked it away, his mind racing. The glove was too small for Victor, too masculine for Eleanor or Clara. Brent's hands were gloved earlier. Had he dropped it? Or was it Mrs. Poole's, misplaced in haste? The storm howled, sealing the manor in a cocoon of snow. Poirot dismissed the group, urging them to rest. "The truth, it waits for the morning," he said. The guests dispersed, their footsteps heavy on the stairs. Poirot lingered in the drawing room, his gaze on the glove. It was well worn, the leather creased, suggesting frequent use. A servant's? A guest's? He turned to the fire, its embers glowing like eyes. Then from the corridor a faint rustle, a sound not of wind but of fabric brushing stone. Someone was watching. Chapter 3. The decanter's secret dawn broke over Hawthorne Manor, the snowstorm painting the windows with delicate frost. The manor, steeped in the somber chill of Christmas morning 1933, felt more tomb than home. Hercule Poirot, impeccably dressed despite the hour, stood in the pantry where the missing wine decanter had last been seen. The faint light of a single lamp illuminated shelves of gleaming crystal, but the decanter, central to the mystery of Sir Reginald Hawthorne's poisoning, remained elusive until Poirot's keen eyes spotted it, tucked behind a stack of linen napkins. Its crystal facets caught the light, revealing smudges on its surface. "Voila," Poirot murmured. "The stage is set, but the actors, they play their parts too well." He examined the decanter under the lamp's glow, noting a faint sticky residue inside. Not wine, but something else. Poison? A preservative, perhaps, to mask cyanide's telltale scent? Poirot's little gray cells buzzed. The decanter had served all at dinner, yet only Reginald died. A targeted method was likely. A capsule, dissolvable, slipped into his glass alone. But by whom? He summoned Mrs. Agnes Poole, the housekeeper, whose calloused hands trembled as she entered. "Madame Poole," Poirot said, his voice smooth as velvet. "You claimed the decanter was here last night, yet it was hidden. Why?" Her gray eyes flickered. "I cleared it after dinner, as always," she said, her tone clipped. "Someone must have moved it." Poirot noted her unease, the way her fingers clutched her apron. "And you served Sir Reginald's wine in the study at 8? She nodded, curt. He was alone, writing. Poirot's gaze lingered, a housekeeper of 20 years, yet her loyalty seemed frayed. In the drawing room, the suspects gathered, their faces drawn from sleeplessness. Lady Eleanor, her elegance marred by dark circles, sat rigidly. Clara Hawthorne, clutching a shawl, eyed the group with suspicion. Victor Grange, his temper barely checked, paced by the fire. Dr. Malcolm Brent adjusted his spectacles, avoiding eye contact. Poirot held up the decanter. This, mes amis, may hold the key to death. Who touched it after dinner? Silence answered, thick with distrust. Clara broke the tension, producing a letter from her pocket. Uncle Reginald sent this last week, she said, her voice defiant yet shaky. He praised my spirit, but warned I'd lose my inheritance. Poirot scanned the letter. Reginald's script, formal, with a warmth that felt oddly staged. A red herring, perhaps, to deflect suspicion. Mademoiselle, you were in the library when he died? Clara nodded. Reading. Alone. Her alibi, like the letter, was convenient but unverified. Poirot turned to Victor. Monsieur Grange, you claim you were in the billiard room, yet no footprints marked the snow when you checked the stables earlier. Victor's face reddened. I stayed indoors after dinner, he snapped. The stables were earlier before the storm worsened. Poirot's mustache twitched. A weak alibi, easily broken, he pressed Dr. Brent next. You saw Sir Reginald at 9:30, oui? Was he drinking? Brent hesitated. He had a glass, but I didn't see him drink. Poirot noted the doctor's sweat, the nervous tick returning. The residue in the decanter nagged at Poirot. He theorized cyanide could have been mixed with a masking agent, applied to the decanter's rim or a single glass. But the locked study complicated matters. No one entered after Brent's visit, yet the poison struck at 10. Timing was key. Poirot recalled the sugar cube on Reginald's desk, unusual as he took his wine unsweetened. A clue or another distraction. Lady Eleanor's composure wavered as Poirot questioned her. Reginald was distant lately, she admitted. His will change upset us all. Her eyes flicked to Brent, a glance Poirot caught. A shared secret? Mrs. Poole, lingering at the room's edge, offered little, but her silence spoke volumes. Poirot sensed a grudge deeper than mere service. Madame, what did Sir Reginald do to earn your loyalty, or your scorn? She stiffened. He was a hard man, that's all. Poirot paced, piecing together the evening. Dinner at 7, wine served. Reginald to his study at 9, Brent's visit, the scream at 10. The word trust on the scrap of paper haunted him. Trust in whom? A betrayer among them? The glove from the corridor, unclaimed, suggested carelessness, or a deliberate plant. Poirot's mind churned. The killer was clever, weaving a web of misdirection. As the clock struck 9, a sudden crash echoed from upstairs, sharp like glass shattering. The guests froze, eyes darting to the ceiling. Poirot's head tilted, his senses alert. The attic, perhaps, he said, his voice calm but commanding. We shall investigate. He led the way, his polished shoes clicking on the stairs, the suspects trailing reluctantly. The sound was no accident. Someone was moving, hiding, or destroying evidence. Chapter 4. Whispers in the Attic. The wind howled outside Hawthorne Manor, its icy breath seeping through the cracks of the ancient house as Christmas morning 1933 unfolded under a pall of suspicion. Hercule Poirot led the way up the creaking staircase to the attic, his polished shoes tapping with purpose. The crash heard moments ago, sharp like glass breaking, had stirred the already tense household. Behind him trailed the suspects. Lady Eleanor Hawthorne, her face pale beneath her elegant chignon. Dr. Malcolm Brent clutching his medical bag too tightly. Clara Hawthorne, her eyes darting with unease. Victor Grange, muttering under his breath. And Mrs. Agnes Poole, silent as a shadow. The air grew colder with each step, the manor's upper reaches untouched by the fires below. The attic door groaned as Poirot pushed it open, revealing a dim, dusty space cluttered with trunks, cobwebs, and forgotten relics. A shattered porcelain vase lay in fragments across the floor, its blue and white shards glinting in the light of Poirot's borrowed lantern. Mon Dieu, he murmured, kneeling to inspect the debris. This was no accident. The vase's base bore a faint scratch as if it had been deliberately toppled. Poirot's keen eyes swept the room, landing on Dr. Brent, who stood near a trunk, his hands fidgeting. "Doctor, you are here in the attic at an odd hour. Pourquoi?" Brent started, his spectacles slipping. I thought I heard the crash and came to check. Perhaps medical supplies were stored here." His voice wavered, and Poirot noticed a glint in his hand. A locket, heart-shaped, engraved with E and M. "Eleanor and Malcolm?" Poirot's mustache twitched. "And this locket, it is yours?" Brent flushed, stammering, "I found it just now among the trunks." He handed it over, revealing a faded photograph inside, a younger Eleanor smiling beside Brent. "An old memento," Brent muttered. "Our friendship ended years ago." Lady Eleanor, standing near the door, gasped softly. "That was private," she whispered, her composure fraying. Poirot's gaze sharpened. "Madam, did Sir Reginald know of this friendship?" Eleanor's eyes dropped. "He suspected, perhaps, but it was long over." Poirot filed away the revelation. An affair, ended or not, provided motive. Had Reginald's suspicions fueled his death? Clara, hovering by a dusty bookshelf, interrupted. "You're all hiding things," she snapped, her voice cutting through the attic's gloom. "Uncle Reginald knew your secrets, didn't he?" Her accusation hung heavy, aimed at Brent and Eleanor. Victor snorted. "Let's not play saints, girl. You wanted his money as much as anyone." Clara's cheeks flushed, but she held her ground. Mrs. Poole remained silent, her gray eyes scanning the shadows, as if guarding her own secrets. Poirot's attention shifted to a trunk, its lid ajar. Inside he found a leather-bound diary, its pages yellowed but filled with Reginald's precise script. The entries detailed business dealings, Victor's debts, and vague references to betrayal in the heart of the home. The final page was torn out, leaving only a jagged edge. "This diary," Poirot said, holding it aloft, "it speaks of trust broken. Who tore this page and why?" The suspects exchanged uneasy glances, none answering. The missing page suggested a hidden truth, perhaps the key to the word trust found in Reginald's pocket. Poirot paced the attic, his mind weaving threads. The vase, the locket, the diary, all pointed to secrets long buried. The cyanide's delivery remained the puzzle's core. A locked study, a single glass of wine, a sugar cube untouched. Brent's affair with Eleanor hinted at motive, but his alibi held, for now. Clara's anger at her disinheritance burned brightly, yet her letter seemed too convenient. Victor's financial ruin was compelling, but his temper suggested impulsiveness, not cunning. Mrs. Poole's silence was a cipher, her years of service masking a deeper wound. As Poirot closed the diary, a faint rattle came from a nearby window. He crossed the attic, his lantern casting eerie shadows. The window was unlatched, its frame loose, admitting a draft of icy air. Outside, the snow lay thick, but a faint disturbance marked the ledge. A smudge, as if someone had leaned out. "Curieux," Poirot murmured. Had someone climbed out, defying the storm, or was it another misdirection? Clara, watching from the doorway, accused Brent. "You were up here, weren't you, hiding your secrets?" Brent's jaw tightened. "I told you I came for supplies," Victor growled. "Enough games. Someone killed Reginald and I'm not taking the blame." Mrs. Poole's lips parted, then closed, her silence louder than words. Poirot raised a hand. "Patience, mes amis. The truth, it reveals itself in time." The attic's chill seeped into their bones as Poirot led them downstairs, the diary and locket in his pocket. The broken vase suggested someone had been searching or staging a distraction. The unlatched window hinted at an impossible escape. Poirot's little gray cells churned, piecing together the evening. Dinner, wine, the study, the scream. The killer was among them, their masks slipping with each clue. As they reached the landing, a faint creak echoed from below, as if the manor itself whispered a warning. Chapter 5. The Poison's Path. The snowstorm raged on, cloaking Hawthorne Manor in a shroud of white as Christmas morning 1933 wore on. Hercule Poirot stood in the manor's library, now a makeshift laboratory where Dr. Malcolm Brent, under Poirot's watchful eye, analyzed the spilled wine from Sir Reginald Hawthorne's study. The faint almond-like odor confirmed Poirot's suspicion. Cyanide, swift and lethal. Yet no vial or container had surfaced, and the locked study remained a maddening enigma. Poirot's little gray cells hummed, piecing together the evening. Dinner at 7, Reginald's retreat at 9, the scream at 10. The poison's delivery was key, and Poirot's gaze returned to the sugar cube found on Reginald's desk, an anomaly for a man who shunned sweets. "Doctor," Poirot said, his Belgian accent crisp, "this cyanide, how might it be administered so precisely?" Brent, his spectacles fogging, hesitated. "A liquid, perhaps, or a dissolvable capsule. It acts in minutes." Poirot nodded, his eyes narrowing. "A capsule, oui, slipped into the wine, dissolving slowly to strike at the appointed hour." He held up the sugar cube, its edges oddly worn. "Or perhaps concealed in this." Brent frowned, skeptical, but agreed to test it. The cube, when crushed, revealed no poison, but Poirot's mind churned. A capsule could have been hidden in a cube, dissolving into the wine unnoticed. In the drawing room, the suspects gathered, their faces etched with fatigue and fear. Lady Eleanor Hawthorne, her elegance fraying, sat by the fire, her fingers twisting a handkerchief. "Reginald made a toast at dinner," she said, her voice trembling. "To loyalty," he said, but his eyes were cold. Poirot noted her unease. "And who poured his wine, madam?" She glanced at Mrs. Agnes Poole, who stood stiffly by the door. Agnes did, as always. Mrs. Poole's gray eyes met Poirot's, unyielding. "I served the decanter to all," she said curtly. "Nothing more." Poirot pressed her. "Yet Sir Reginald wronged, you know. A personal grievance, perhaps." Her lips tightened. "He dismissed my son years ago, a good lad, for a minor fault. I bore it." Her voice held a bitter edge, and Poirot sensed a wound unhealed. Clara Hawthorne, pacing, interrupted. "You're all dodging the truth. Uncle Reginald knew your secrets." Her gaze swept from Eleanor to Brent. Poirot tilted his head. "And you, Mademoiselle Clara? You were in the library alone when he died?" Clara nodded, defiant. "Reading. I heard the scream and ran." Her alibi, unverified, hung like a thread. Poirot recalled her letter, praising her spirit yet threatening disinheritance, a convenient distraction or genuine. Victor Grange, his temper barely checked, growled, "Enough of this. Reginald's schemes bankrupted me. Debts I can't pay." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Monsieur, your anger, it betrays you. Where were you at 10? Victor snapped, "Billiard room with Brent." Brent nodded, but his nervous tick, a twitch of the jaw, returned. Poirot filed it away, suspecting a crack in their story. A maid, timid and young, approached Poirot. "Sir, I saw Miss Clara near the study before the scream, carrying a book." Clara's face flushed. "I was in the library. She's mistaken." Poirot's mustache twitched. A witness or another misdirection? He turned to the decanter, now on the drawing-room table, its smudged surface hinting at tampering. Brent's analysis confirmed no poison in the decanter itself, but the residue suggested a cleaning agent, perhaps to mask cyanide's scent. "Curieux," Poirot murmured. The killer was meticulous, covering their tracks. Poirot revisited the timeline. The decanter served all at dinner, Reginald's glass filled later in the study. The sugar cube, if laced with a capsule, could explain the delayed poisoning. But who had access? Mrs. Poole handled the tray. Eleanor was near Reginald, Clara was nearby. Victor and Brent had opportunities. The word trust from Reginald's pocket nagged. Trust in whom? A betrayer at the table? As noon approached, Poirot stepped outside, the snow crunching under his boots. The storm had eased, revealing a pristine white lawn, except for a single footprint near the study window, faint but unmistakable. Too shallow for fresh snow, it suggested a deliberate plant. "The killer plays games," Poirot said softly, his breath fogging in the cold. The footprint's size matched Clara's boots, but her insistence on staying indoors rang true. A frame, perhaps, or a clever ruse. Back inside, the suspect's eyes followed Poirot, their tension palpable. Eleanor's glance at Brent hinted at their shared past. Victor's clenched fists spoke of desperation. Mrs. Poole's silence was a fortress. Clara's defiance masked fear. Poirot smiled thinly. "The truth, it hides in plain sight, but it will not escape Hercule Poirot." As he spoke, a faint creak echoed from the hall like a door easing. Open. Chapter 6. Footprints in the Snow. The snowstorm had settled into a brooding hush over Hawthorne Manor, its icy grip tightening as Christmas afternoon 1933 cast long shadows across the frost-laden windows. Hercule Poirot stood outside the study examining the single footprint discovered earlier. A faint imprint near the window. Too shallow for the fresh snow that blanketed the lawn. His keen eyes traced its edges, noting its size matched Clara Hawthorne's boots. Yet Clara's insistence that she never left the manor nagged at him. "A footprint," Poirot murmured, his breath fogging in the chill. "It tells a story, but is it truth or deception?" His little gray cells churned, suspecting a deliberate plant to mislead. Inside, the drawing room was heavy with tension, the fire's crackle the only sound as the suspects gathered. Poirot held up a sketch of the footprint, his Belgian accent sharp. "Mademoiselle Clara, this matches your boots, explain." Clara's face flushed, her dark eyes blazing. "I told you I was in the library, someone's framing me." Her voice cracked, betraying fear beneath her defiance. Poirot's gaze softened but remained piercing. "Then who, mademoiselle, would wish to cast suspicion upon you?" Clara's eyes darted to Dr. Malcolm Brent, then to Lady Eleanor, but she said nothing. Poirot turned to Victor Grange, whose ruddy face was taut with impatience. "Monsieur Grange, you claim you were in the billiard room at the time of the scream, oui? Yet you checked the stables earlier. Your coat, it is dry despite the snow." Victor's fists clenched. "I told you I stayed inside after dinner. The stables were before the storm thickened." His alibi wavered, and Poirot noted his coat hanging in the hall indeed showed no signs of dampness. A point in his favor. Or a careful lie. Dr. Brent, fidgeting with his spectacles, corroborated Victor's story. "We were together playing billiards until 10, but his nervous tick, a twitch of the jaw, returned under Poirot's scrutiny. "And you, Doctor, saw Sir Reginald at 9:30. Was his wine glass full?" Brent nodded. "Yes, untouched." Poirot's mind raced. The cyanide's swift action meant it was administered close to 10. The sugar cube, the decanter, the glass, all pointed to a precise method, yet the locked study baffled. Mrs. Agnes Poole stood apart, her gray hair pinned tightly, her face unreadable. Poirot pressed her. "Madame, you served the wine, you knew Sir Reginald's habits. His dismissal of your son, did it breed resentment?" Her eyes flickered, and for the first time tears welled. "He was cruel to my boy, casting him out for a trifle. But I did my duty." Her voice broke, and Poirot sensed a truth half-spoken. A mother's pain could turn to vengeance, no? Poirot returned to the study, his steps deliberate. The locked room held secrets yet uncovered. He examined the bookshelves, their leather-bound volumes undisturbed. until his fingers brushed a panel that shifted slightly. With a gentle push, it opened, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside lay a small glass vial, empty but reeking of cyanide's bitter almond scent. "Voila," Poirot whispered, holding it to the light. The vial's presence suggested an inside job, but its placement felt too convenient, a trap to mislead. He summoned the suspects to the study, showing them the vial. "This, mes amis, held the poison. Who placed it here?" Eleanor gasped, her hand to her throat. "It's impossible. The study was locked." Clara's eyes widened. Victor cursed under his breath, and Brent paled. Mrs. Poole's tears flowed freely now, her voice a whisper. "I saw nothing," she said, but her trembling hands betrayed her. Poirot's mustache twitched. "The vial speaks, but it does not name its owner yet." The footprint returned to Poirot's thoughts. Its shallowness suggested it was made before the heaviest snow, perhaps staged to implicate Clara. He tested her boots, kept in the hall, dry, like Victor's coat. "Curieux," he murmured. The killer was weaving a web of misdirection, the glove, the footprint, now the vial. The diary's torn page, the locket, the word trust, all pointed to betrayal. But whose? Poirot reconstructed the timeline. Dinner at 7, wine served. Reginald's retreat at 9, Brent's visit. The scream at 10. The sugar cube remained a tantalizing clue. Had it concealed a cyanide capsule dissolving in the wine? Mrs. Poole's access to the tray, Eleanor's proximity, Clara's presence near the study, Victor and Brent's shaky alibis, all kept the puzzle alive. As the afternoon waned, the manor's silence was broken by a sharp cry from the garden. Poirot hurried to the window, the suspects trailing. Outside in the snow lay a scarf, red silk, vivid against the white. It hadn't been there hours ago. "Mon Dieu," Poirot said, his eyes narrowing. "Another breadcrumb or a trap?" The scarf fluttered as if mocking their confusion. Chapter 7. The Scarf's Tale. The snow lay heavy around Hawthorne Manor, its silence broken only by the occasional groan of the wind as Christmas afternoon 1933 deepened the chill within and without. Hercule Poirot stood in the garden, his gloved hands holding the red silk scarf found moments ago. Its vibrant hue stark against the snow. The manor's windows stared down like accusing eyes, and Poirot's little gray cells buzzed with questions. The scarf, delicate and expensive, bore a faint monogram. E.H. Lady Eleanor Hawthorne. A careless mistake, or another thread in the killer's web of misdirection? Inside the drawing room, Poirot presented the scarf to the assembled suspects, his Belgian accent sharp as a blade. "Madame Eleanor, this is yours, non?" Eleanor's face paled, her fingers trembling as she reached for it. "It was stolen from my room," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "I haven't seen it since yesterday." Poirot's eyes narrowed, catching the flicker of fear in her gaze. "Stolen, you say? Yet it appears in the garden near the study where Sir Reginald met his end. Curious, is it not?" Eleanor's composure cracked. "Reginald knew of my past with Malcolm," she admitted, glancing at Dr. Brent, who shifted uncomfortably. "He threatened to expose it to ruin us both." Poirot tilted his head. "And this gave you reason to silence him, perhaps?" Eleanor shook her head fiercely. "No, I loved him, despite everything." Brent stepped forward, his voice unsteady. "She's telling the truth, Poirot. Our affair ended years ago." Poirot noted Brent's sweat, the nervous tick in his jaw. "Then why, doctor, do you carry such guilt?" Brent produced a medical log claiming he was with a patient, a maid with a sprained ankle, during the murder window. "Check the log," he urged. Poirot scanned it. The entry was neat, but the ink seemed fresh, too fresh. "A log can be altered, no?" Poirot mused, his tone deceptively mild. Brent flushed, stammering, I swear it's accurate. Clara Hawthorne, her youthful defiance flaring, pointed at the scarf. You're all liars. That scarf proves Eleanor was outside sneaking around. Eleanor's eyes flashed. How dare you? I was in my room after dinner. Clara's accusation hung heavy, but Poirot recalled the footprint, linked to Clara's boots, yet too shallow for fresh snow. Was Clara deflecting suspicion? Victor Grange, his temper simmering, growled, "This is nonsense. Reginald's death is about money, not scarves or love affairs." Poirot turned to him. "Your debts, Monsieur Grange, they weigh heavily, oui? Did you seek to settle them with murder?" Victor's fists clenched. "I didn't need to kill him. He was already ruining me." His alibi, billiards with Brent, remained shaky, and Poirot sensed a crack in his bluster. Mrs. Agnes Poole, silent until now, watched from the room's edge, her gray eyes unreadable. Poirot addressed her. "Madame, you served the wine, you knew the manor's secrets. Did you see this scarf before?" Her lips tightened. "No. I was in the kitchen after dinner." Her curtness masked something deeper, perhaps tied to her son's dismissal, a motive Poirot kept in mind. Returning to the study, Poirot re-examined the scene. The cyanide vial, the sugar cube, the word trust on the torn paper, all pointed to a calculated crime. His fingers brushed the desk, pausing at a broken pen nib, its tip stained with odd bluish ink. It matched a fountain pen in Clara's room seen earlier. "Mademoiselle Clara," he called, holding it up. "This nib, it is from your pen, non?" Clara's face drained of color. I haven't used that pen in weeks. Someone took it." Her trembling hands betrayed panic, and Poirot wondered, another plant or her own carelessness? The timeline gnawed at him. Dinner at 7, wine served, Reginald's retreat at 9, Brent's visit at past, the scream at 10. The cyanide's swift action meant it struck close to the scream. The sugar cube, perhaps laced with a dissolvable capsule, remained a compelling theory. The scarf, the footprint, the vial, the nib, all suggested a killer weaving distractions. Eleanor's affair and Victor's debts were motives, but Mrs. Poole's quiet rage and Clara's disinheritance burned just as brightly. Brent's log felt like a lie, too convenient. Poirot paced, his mind weaving threads. The scarf's appearance in the garden hinted at someone outside the study. Yet the locked room defied logic. Had the killer used the unlatched attic window? Or was the scarf another ruse like the footprint? The word trust echoed, Reginald's warning of betrayal. Poirot's mustache twitched. "The heart conceals what the eye reveals," he murmured. As the clock struck 4, a faint knock echoed from the cellar below, sharp and deliberate. The suspects froze, their eyes darting to the floor. Poirot's head tilted, his senses alert. "The manor, it speaks," he said, his voice calm but commanding. "Let us see what it hides." The knock was no accident. Someone or something lurked in the depths. Chapter 8. The Cellar's Secret. The faint knock from the cellar echoed through Hawthorne Manor like a summons from the grave, cutting through the heavy silence of Christmas afternoon 1933. Hercule Poirot paused on the landing, his sharp eyes scanning the suspects' faces. Lady Eleanor Hawthorne's pale composure, Dr. Malcolm Brent's nervous fidgeting, Clara Hawthorne's defiant stare, Victor Grange's clenched jaw, and Mrs. Agnes Poole's stoic mask. The snowstorm outside had muted to a whisper, but inside tension coiled like a spring. "The cellar, mes amis," Poirot said, his Belgian accent precise and commanding. "It calls to us. Let us answer." He led the way down the narrow stone steps, his lantern casting flickering shadows on the damp walls, the air growing colder and mustier with each descent. The cellar door creaked open under Poirot's hand, revealing a cavernous space lined with racks of wine bottles. their labels faded under layers of dust. Cobwebs draped like veils, and the faint scent of earth and aged oak hung heavy. The knock had ceased, but Poirot's senses remained alert. He swept the lantern across the room, its beam catching on a dusty bottle of wine, identical to the vintage from the dinner decanter. "Curieux," he murmured, lifting it carefully. No poison residue on casual inspection, but its placement, isolated on a low shelf, suggested it had been recently handled. "Who comes to the cellar on Christmas Eve?" he asked, his gaze piercing the group. Dr. Brent shifted uneasily. "I haven't been down here," he muttered, his spectacles fogging in the chill. Clara snorted. "Likely story. You and Aunt Eleanor have secrets everywhere." Eleanor's eyes flashed. "Mind your tongue, Clara," Victor growled. "We're wasting time. Reginald's killer is upstairs, not in some dusty hole." Mrs. Poole remained silent, her gray eyes fixed on the bottle, her hands clasped tightly. Poirot noted her tension, a tell, perhaps. Deeper in the cellar, behind a stack of crates, Poirot discovered a hidden compartment in the stone wall, its latch cleverly disguised as a loose brick. With a gentle click, it opened, revealing a crumpled page. The torn sheet from Reginald's diary, its script hurried. "Beware the trusted. Deceit in the shadows." Poirot's mustache twitched as he read it aloud. "Sir Reginald warned of betrayal from within. Who is the trusted one?" The suspects exchanged uneasy glances. Eleanor whispered, "He was paranoid, always suspecting us all." Brent nodded vigorously. "Yes, his health was failing, delusions perhaps." Poirot's little gray cells whirred, connecting the page to the scrap in Reginald's pocket. Trust. A final warning. Torn and hidden here. He turned to Mrs. Poole, her face now etched with strain. "Madame, you know this manor's secrets, the passages, the compartments. Did you hide this?" Her composure broke, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I found it in his study days ago," she confessed, her voice trembling. "He wrote of betrayals, but I didn't kill him. His cruelty to my son, dismissing him without cause, ruining his life, that I despised, but I served faithfully." Poirot's eyes softened, but his mind remained sharp. A partial truth or a deflection? Her access to the wine, her knowledge of the cellar, motive and opportunity aligned. Clara's voice cut through. "You hated him, admit it." Mrs. Poole shook her head. "Hate, yes, but murder, no." Victor's temper flared. "Then who? Me? For debts?" Poirot examined Victor's pocket watch, produced earlier as part of his alibi. It was stopped at precisely 10 o'clock, the hour of the scream. "Monsieur Grange, your watch. It stopped at the murder hour. Deliberate to fake your presence elsewhere?" Victor's face reddened. "It's broken. Been that way for days." Poirot's gaze lingered. A convenient malfunction or a slip? Brent's medical log, the scarf, the footprint, the pen nib, all wove into Poirot's deductions. The cyanide, swift-acting, must have been delivered via a slow-dissolving capsule in the sugar cube, placed on the tray by someone trusted, Mrs. Poole, who served the wine. Yet the locked study suggested no entry after Brent's visit. A hidden passage from the cellar? Poirot tested the walls, finding no secret door, but the idea lingered. The diary page warned of the trusted, a housekeeper, a wife, a partner. Poirot reconstructed the timeline. Dinner at 7, wine from the decanter, Reginald to study at 9, Brent's check at 1:30, scream at 10. The capsule's delay fit perfectly for a private drink. Eleanor's affair, Clara's disinheritance, Victor's ruin, Brent's lies, Poole's grudge, each a thread in the tapestry. "The killer," Poirot mused aloud, "relies on misdirection, the glove, the scarf, the vial, but the truth emerges." As evening shadows lengthened, the cellar's chill deepened. Poirot pocketed the diary page, dismissing the group. We ascend, but the secrets follow. Upstairs the manor felt alive with whispers. Then a piercing scream shattered the silence, echoing from the upper floors. The suspects froze, hearts pounding. Poirot's head snapped up. "Quickly," he urged, racing toward the sound. Chapter 9. The final clue. The scream tore through Hawthorne Manor, sharp and desperate, as Christmas evening 1933 cloaked the house in deepening shadows. Hercule Poirot raced up the grand staircase, his polished shoes echoing on the oak, the suspects trailing in a flurry of panic. The snowstorm outside had stilled, but inside the air crackled with dread. The cry came from Clara Hawthorne's room, and Poirot flung open the door to find her trembling, her face pale as moonlight. On her bedside table lay a small glass vial, its bitter almond scent unmistakable, cyanide. "It's not mine!" Clara gasped, her voice breaking. "Someone put it there!" Poirot's little gray cells whirred, his keen eyes scanning the room. The vial, identical to the one in the study's hidden panel, felt like another deliberate plant, much like the footprint, the scarf, the glove. "Mademoiselle Clara," he said, his Belgian accent calm but piercing. "This vial accuses you, yet you claim innocence. Who then wishes you blamed?" Clara's gaze darted to Lady Eleanor, then Dr. Brent, her defiance crumbling. "They all hated Uncle Reginald. They're framing me." In the drawing room, Poirot gathered the suspects, the fire casting flickering shadows on their tense faces. Lady Eleanor, her elegance fraying, clutched her shawl, her eyes betraying guilt. "I didn't touch that vial," she whispered. Poirot tilted his head. "Your scarf, madame, was found in the garden. Your past with Dr. Brent gave Reginald cause to distrust you." Eleanor's lips trembled. "He knew, but I didn't kill him." Dr. Brent, his spectacles slipping, protested. "I've done nothing but help." Poirot held up Brent's medical log, its fresh ink a silent accusation. "Your alibi, doctor, is fragile, and your locket, E&M, betrays a secret kept too long." Brent's jaw twitched, his voice faltering. "It was years ago. I had no reason to harm him." Victor Grange, his temper barely contained, slammed a fist on the armrest. "This is absurd. My debts didn't make me a killer." Poirot's gaze fixed on Victor's stopped watch, frozen at 10, the murder hour. "Your watch, monsieur, suggests a lie. Did you stop it to fake an alibi?" Victor's face reddened. "It's broken, I told you." But his bluster rang hollow. Mrs. Agnes Poole stood apart, her gray eyes glistening with unshed tears. Poirot addressed her softly. "Madame, your son's dismissal fueled your hatred. The diary page, 'Beware the trusted,' points to one close to Sir Reginald. You served his wine, knew his habits." Poole's voice broke. "I despised him, yes, but I didn't poison him." Her anguish felt genuine, yet her access to the sugar cube tray lingered in Poirot's mind. Poirot paced, reconstructing the crime. Dinner at 7, wine served. Reginald to his study at 9. Brent's visit at 1:30, the scream at 10. The cyanide, fast-acting, suggested a capsule in the sugar cube, dissolving slowly in the wine, a method requiring intimate knowledge of Reginald's routine. The glove, scarf, footprint, vial, and pen nib were distractions, sewn to confuse. The diary's warning, "Trust," pointed to betrayal by a familiar hand. He gathered the suspects closer, his voice steady. The killer used a sugar cube laced with a cyanide capsule. Placed on the tray, served to Sir Reginald alone. Only one had such access, such knowledge. His eyes swept the room, noting Eleanor's rigid posture, Brent's sweat, Clara's trembling, Victor's fists, Poole's tears. The red herrings, these clues scattered like snow, hide a simple truth. Poirot's deductions crystallized. The decanter was clean, the vial planted, the footprint staged. The pen nib, linked to Clara, was likely taken from her room. The scarf implicated Eleanor, but its theft rang true. Victor's watch and Brent's log suggested deception. But Mrs. Poole's role in serving the wine, her quiet rage, stood out. The trusted one, Poirot mused, is one who moves unseen yet sees all. As he prepared to press further, a gasp broke the silence. Dr. Brent staggered, clutching his throat, his face contorted in pain. He collapsed, his medical bag spilling across the floor. The suspects cried out, Eleanor rushing to his side. "Malcolm!" she screamed. Poirot knelt swiftly, his fingers checking Brent's pulse, weak but steady. A faint chemical scent lingered, not cyanide but something else. "Mon Dieu," Poirot said, his eyes blazing. "Another act or a second crime?" Chapter 10. The Christmas Revelation. The drawing room of Hawthorne Manor was a crucible of tension, its firelight casting long shadows as Christmas evening 1933 drew the mystery to its close. Dr. Malcolm Brent lay crumpled on the floor, his collapse moments ago sparking cries from the suspects. Lady Eleanor Hawthorne kneeling beside him, Clara Hawthorne frozen in shock, Victor Grange cursing under his breath, and Mrs. Agnes Poole standing rigid, her gray eyes glistening. Hercule Poirot, his small frame commanding the room, knelt swiftly, his fingers finding Brent's pulse. "Mon Dieu," he said, his Belgian accent sharp. "A performance, not a poisoning." He produced a vial from his pocket, an antidote for a sedative, not cyanide, and administered it. Brent stirred, coughing, his eyes fluttering open. "Doctor, you play a dangerous game," Poirot said, his mustache twitching. A staged collapse to flush out the guilty. The suspects gasped, Eleanor's hand flying to her mouth. Poirot rose, his gaze sweeping the room. "The killer, mes amis, is among us, and the truth can no longer hide." He paced, his polished shoes clicking on the oak floor, the snowstorm's faint howl underscoring his words. Poirot reconstructed the crime with surgical precision. Sir Reginald died of cyanide delivered in his study, locked from within. The wine glass, the sugar cube, the word trust, all pointed to a betrayer. The glove, the scarf, the footprint, the vial, the pen nib, these were distractions, sewn to confuse. But the method was simple. A cyanide capsule hidden in a sugar cube dissolved in his wine. He paused, letting the weight settle. Only one had access to the tray, knowledge of his habits, and a motive burning for years. He turned to Mrs. Poole, her face pale, tears streaming. "Madame Poole, you served the wine, you placed the sugar cube. Your son's dismissal by Sir Reginald, a cruel act, fueled your hatred. The diary page, when Beware the Trusted named you the loyal housekeeper who knew every secret of this house." Poole's shoulders sagged, her voice a whisper. "He destroyed my boy's future. Cast him out like refuse." Poirot continued, his tone relentless yet compassionate. "You crafted a capsule laced with cyanide from the manor's old gardening supplies and hid it in a sugar cube on the tray brought to Sir Reginald's study at 8. It dissolved slowly, striking at 10 when he drank alone. The locked door was no barrier. You needed only to serve and wait." He held up the diary page, then the vial from Clara's room. "The glove, the scarf, the footprint, the vial, these you planted to implicate others. The pen nib, a coincidence, belonged to Clara, but you used it to muddy the waters." Clara gasped, her defiance gone. "I knew it wasn't me." Victor's fists unclenched, his anger turning to relief. "You let me take the blame," he muttered. Eleanor, tears in her eyes, clutched Brent's hand. "We were guilty of secrets, not murder," she said. Brent, recovering, nodded weakly. "I faked the collapse to help Poirot." Poirot's eyes softened, but his voice remained firm. "Madame Poole, you betrayed the trust Sir Reginald placed in you." The word trust was his warning, written as he sensed betrayal. You hid the diary page, staged the attic crash, and scattered clues to confuse. But the little gray cells they see through deception. Poole collapsed into a chair, sobbing. I couldn't forgive him. My son. He suffered, and Reginald laughed. Her confession hung heavy, the room silent but for the fire's crackle. Poirot sighed, adjusting his tie. Justice it is served, but the heart it mourns. He signaled for the maid to fetch the authorities, though the snow would delay them. The loose ends unraveled. Eleanor's scarf was stolen from her room, the footprint staged with Clara's boots, the vial planted to frame her. Victor's stopped watch was indeed broken, his debts a motive but not the act. Brent's log was falsified, his affair a distraction, not a crime. The locket, the diary page, the sugar cube, all pointed to Poole's calculated vengeance. The locked study was no mystery. The poison was delivered before the door was bolted. As night fell, the manor exhaled, its secrets laid bare. Poirot stood by the window, the snow reflecting the moon's pale light. The human heart, he mused, it is the greatest puzzle of all. The suspects dispersed, their steps heavy with relief or guilt. Clara lingered, whispering, Thank you, monsieur. Poirot inclined his head. The truth, mademoiselle, it is my duty. Outside, the snow fell softly, blanketing the manor in quiet forgiveness. The storm had passed, but the chill of betrayal lingered. Poirot adjusted his coat, ready to depart when the roads cleared, his mind already turning to the next enigma. Hercule Poirot, he said to himself. He does not fail.